Welcome to Bob Folk Rides Hunting Adventures. This week we're headed to Alaska for moose, a float trip for moose on the 40-mile river. What an adventure it was, what a dream come true. Oh, I can remember like it was yesterday, my first float trip, and my second one. The things that I learned or didn't learn, but we put to use on this trip here. I changed the rules, and this is how it should be done. Take your notes, write down your phone numbers, do your own dream hunts, and make it happen. It's an adventure you won't forget. But also we got a conservation tip from the Wild Sheep Foundation, and a training tip come from Winchester Ammo. Hope you enjoy the show. Don't go away. It's an exciting event.
Victor Chevrolet, Bass Pro Shops, and Alamocitos Ranch present Bob Folk Rides Hunting Adventures. 7 continents, 80 species, a 5-year quest in the making. High adventure, dangerous game, real-world training tips. This is Bob Folk Rides Hunting Adventures.
Like all good adventures, this one has a starting place, Fairbanks, Alaska.
Let the adventure begin.
After picking up Bob at the airport, the crew travels to the small town of Tok, Alaska, where the hunt will begin. But before that happens, the gear has to be unpacked, checked, and repacked for the trip into the backcountry.
Obviously you can see we're getting the rafts all together. We're going to take stuff down to 40 Mile. You got to weigh everything because they're going to fly us in, and I'm going to take the vehicle down to where our pickup point's going to be. So a lot of planning. You see stuff in the back. We got camera equipment, and everything's got to fit on 2 rafts. Hopefully a moose too. So a lot of planning, but I'll tell you what, the rewards are great. When you pull into 40-mile air, I mean, first of all, you're in Alaska, and I mean, to me, Alaska's the, you know, it spells adventure all by itself. I've been there several times, so you got planes coming and going, you got hunters that's coming and going, you got the smell of the plane fuel and watching all the stuff go into it, and the anticipation of these hunters going in, and plus ourselves going into it. I mean, you can't help but not get excited. Well, we're allowed 750 pounds per payload. That's counting the person, and so that gives us times 2, and I'm allowed, what was I allowed? 400 pounds, you know, so 200 pounds of gear in myself. We got 730 pounds worth of gear total, so I think we did pretty good for this trip, and we didn't skimp on anything. The next day, Charlie and Ken get flown into where we're going to start the adventure from. We'll see you there.
I'll see you at the river.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
I'm going to take the van and drive down the highway and park it into a spot where when we get down to the end of our adventure, we got, you know, wheels back to the 40 Mile.
Me, personally, I wanted to go to the island somewhere, sit on the beach and drink margaritas, but no.
Well, I take the van, and it's basically they tell me about where this bridge is. They show it to me on a map, and they told me where to drop the van off. There's going to be a big bridge, and he says, and drop your gear off down here because the plane's actually going to come in and land on the road. Well, we had about a 3-hour drive But he's going to land here on this highway with a plane. He's going to pick me up and fly me in and drop me off what they call Joseph. The adventure is on its way.
Meanwhile, the plane has landed at Joseph Airstrip to unload camera guys and gear. Once it's empty, it's off to pick up Bob.
About 3 hours later, here comes this plane landing, on the road, and it picks me up and off we go. And basically they're going to fly up the river. That kind of gives me a good idea of what I'm going to be floating. And my main concern was about halfway through this thing, they had a place called the Kink, and he said, yeah, there's been people who went through it, but they were lucky to make it, and especially when you're running, your hunting gear, and hopefully you got a moose, and we finally got over that, and I made sure I give it a waypoint. I give it a waypoint up the stream a little bit where you could pull in and take a look at this, and it was one of them places that I really wanted to get on the GPS because it spelled danger. And when we landed, there's a welcome sight. I mean, it's just basically a little landing strip, that's cut out of the, the forest. And Charlie and Ken already had the rafts pumped up, and they were sitting there anticipating for me to come in. There we were. Oh, finally, after months of planning in Pennsylvania and looking at tents and stoves and little generators and food and getting it all shipped up here to Alaska, and then all we had to do was get on an airplane and fly up. Well, we finally got here on the river. I mean, this is where it starts. We landed on the strip today. We've got a campfire going. We've had our supper. We're just going to go over and brush our teeth and jump in our sack and go to bed, and we'll be moose hunting tomorrow.
Bob Folkrod's Hunting Adventures is brought to you by these fine sponsors: Vortex, Kinatrek, Kufaru.
As people who love the outdoors, we know what we stand for. We stand for fish, wildlife, and conserving the places they call home. We stand for the traditions we inherited and that we must pass on. We stand for great gear, fair prices, expert service, and memorable experiences. At Bass Pro Shops in Cabela's, we stand together for you.
For everything Chevy, you need to visit Victor Chevrolet, the place where my family and I get our vehicles. With a large selection, dedicated employees, quick service, and amazing savings, I became the biggest fan of Victor Chevrolet. If you're looking for a reliable vehicle and service, look no further than my friends at Victor Chevrolet. 7200 Pittsford Victor Road, or victorchevrolet.com. Just check and see if there's room for the cup.
This week's training tip is brought to you by Winchester Ammunition.
When that big trophy bull steps out, are you going to be ready? In Alaska, preparation was the key, and there was a whole lot of homework that went into it before I ever stepped foot in the woods. I spent a year getting ready for that trip. From researching gear to studying terrain to getting in shape. I didn't leave anything to chance, and I developed a system for setting up my camp. If you notice while watching the show, anytime I wasn't in the raft, this rifle was sitting on this rest. The reason is simple. In a place like that, you're always hunting. And as soon as I found a good place to camp, I set my rifle close to the campsite. Then I went about my business of setting up camp, cooking food. But regardless of what I was doing, I was never more than 30 seconds from taking a shot. The gun rests give me a consistent place for my rifle, binoculars, and rangefinder. Regardless of the terrain or condition, if I needed them, I knew exactly where to find them every time. The last thing you want is when that big bull steps out on that bank, is to be wondering what tree you left your rifle up against. It may seem simple, but many times the difference between a successful hunt and failure can be measured in seconds. More times than not, having all the tools in one place ready to go every time has given me the edge to bring home a trophy instead of an empty tag. So be prepared, be consistent, and ready to pull that trigger when that trophy of a lifetime steps out. Realistically, they've been seeing some moose right there. But you had to get on the river the next day. It wasn't like, well, yeah, we could hunt right here, but let's get on the river. Let's get this thing going.
Everything the crew will need for the trip downstream has to go into the rafts.
These are going to go under your seat. Bye, Bob.
I have to tell you, the water's going by. It's the first time in a raft in many years. And they got me in, and I drifted off to the side, and I'm waiting for them. And here we go. The adventure starts. Just trying to get the momentum and getting, I watched videos and tapes before I went, but actually doing it yourself is, I have to tell you, it was an experience. Next thing we're into, a few hours into the float, and it's just peaceful.
For the next 4 days, Bob and the crew will travel downriver, setting up camp and calling moose. While no bulls came to the call, there were plenty of other things to occupy the time. In a place like this, there's something new around every bend of the river, and it plays out against the incredible beauty of the Alaska wilderness. The river draws a wide array of creatures to its banks, like this young brown bear, curious about the squeaking blue rafts floating by.
Man, we've seen everything so far. It's just been cows, grizzly bear, caribou, eagles. I think everybody's having a great time. How can you not?
nothing like sitting in a raft and just floating down, and you got the solitude of the water floating by, and you're looking and you're seeing caribou and grizzly bears and eagles, and you just get lost into the adventure.
According to the IUCN's Red List of Threatened Species, moose categorize as a least concern because they're very widespread and extremely abundant despite fairly intense hunting worldwide. The 2014 Alaska Moose General Season Hunt Statistics reports hunter success rates ranked a mere 23%. Young moose are prey for bears, wolves, and cougars, and only about half live beyond 6 weeks, according to Alaska Department of Wildlife. Adult moose, however, have a much higher chance for survival. Vehicle-moose collisions actually pose the greatest danger to the animal's survival. According to Alaska Department of Fish and Game, hundreds of moose are killed each year in moose versus vehicle accidents. This week's Conservation Angle has been brought to you by Wild Sheep Foundation. Transportation for all of Bob Volkrod's hunting adventures is provided by Victor Chevrolet. Check them out at victorchevrolet.com.
Strategy was to find a good place to camp and sit there and hunt that a day or two, and then move on to the next location and continue to do this until we got into moose. Well, we went down the river and we pulled the raft in, we looked at it, and there was a lot of caribou tracks, but there was also some moose tracks in there. We decided we was going to camp there. We spent probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half looking, and we found this spot up on top, and it was just like shag carpet. I mean, nice trees overlooking the river.
So this is going to be home.
Knowing that it probably wasn't going to happen, but we decided to call. We called, you know, quite a lot, and we started a fire, and pretty soon Charlie and Ken showed up, and we sat there and had a good meal, and the fire was going, and I believe Ken was down on the river. He was getting ready to do some time lapses, and I'm overlooking this water, and all of a sudden I seen this humongous rat coming through the woods.
Moose, Charlie. Ken, moose.
So, I mean, it was like a madhouse. Everybody's running around trying to find Ken, and Ken's on the river. He's got his big camera set up doing time lapses. He grabs the camera from Charlie. He comes up. And I remember we're right in front of the fire, and I'm having a hard time adjusting my scope, and Ken says, I can't see that they got the flames coming up through and the heat wave, so we just instantly picked up and we moved like, you know, maybe 5 or 6 steps and got back down.
Come up front.
And this moose put on a show. I mean, he come up and he raked the ground, he pawed the ground, he urinated, and then if that wasn't good enough, he did it all over again.
Susie turned sideways. hang on. Probably when he stands, he'll be right. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh. There we go. Wasn't taking no chances. Wasn't taking no chances. Yes! Yes! What an awesome, awesome trip! What an awesome moose! Well, we just dropped that moose from over there. Right here's our camp. You can see the smoke and the tent and everything. The reason we stopped there is because there's a big wallow there, moose wallow. We found a nice spot. Everything said there's moose here. Let's do some calling. We called, just came over and had something to eat. Built a campfire and was going to go back and finish calling. And that moose, I seen his white rat coming out of the timber, and he put on a show. I mean, he did. He got down in the wallow. He urinated on himself. That calling got him fired up. And it's these are one of these moose that you don't even have to second guess yourself. You just sit there and say, that's big enough. So now we're going to go over. We're going to pull the raft up. It's pretty light without anything in it. So we're going to go over and field dress him, get him tagged, and let's go.
We untied the rafts and we pushed the raft back up, oh, probably 50, 60 yards beyond him, so when we drifted, we could drift right into him.
Look at that. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's a moose. Look how heavy he is. Everything is heavy. He's rutting too. You can smell it. Whew. Look at the size of that.
We'll find out whether he's legal or not. It's either got to be 4 brow tines or he's got to be over 50 inches. On the inside.
No, the outside.
Outside.
Outside of that curve. 64.
64 inches. What a toad. We were sure hoping we'd get one because we just couldn't show you everything that was happening without this. But not only is it a great moose, but a great adventure, and I'm happy to share it with all of you. We field dressed him that evening and got some poles under him to let the air coming under him, so you know he wouldn't, what they call bone sour, and that's, you know, allowing the heat from the body to expand enough. And we came back, and I mean we were just, you know, at an awe.
This segment has been brought to you by the Victor Chevrolet Deal of the Week. Check them out at victorchevrolet.com. VictorChevrolet.com. Find new roads.
Looking for a new or used vehicle? Check out my friends at Victor Chevrolet. You'll be totally satisfied. That's where I get all my vehicles. Had breakfast in the morning and went back up the river and decided to take care of our moose. We brought it back down to our campsite, and I remember we got that rack sitting there, and at that point it was just, you know, now all we have to do is float out of this river. Well, we heard the water running pretty hard, so we pulled over just to take a look at it. And this is what they call the chute. There's a big wall of water down there, and we got to put this moose rack and all the meat and all the gear through that. So we've hunkered down, and it's, you know, back there I said that's this is something you can do. You watch the video, it may be something you can't do. I'm not sure.
After one last night on the river, the crew rounds the bend for their first taste of civilization in 9 days and the end of their journey. The State Highway 5 bridge over the 40-mile river.
This was really a true adventure, and am I going to do it again? Absolutely. I've already made plans, maybe not to go on that river, but it was so adventurous and exciting that I just can't wait to get back up there and do another one.
For help with all of your hunt booking needs, contact J&M Safaris at jnmsafaris.com. After your successful hunt of a lifetime, contact Wes Good at CanadiStudio.com for the finest taxidermy in the business. Be sure to follow Bob and all his adventures at bobfolkrod.com/TV and facebook.com/bfolkrod. And don't forget to hit the like button.